Hello everyone. Since everybody's been asking me about my thoughts of Dynasty Warriors 9 Empires, especially while I was streaming, today I decided to do a detailed review of this game after 60 hours of gameplay and with all achievements unlocked. I have everything unlocked. I have seen all there is to the game, and I haven't had a long history of playing these things. I played Dynasty Warriors Empires games since the very first one in Dynasty Warriors 4 for nearly 2 decades now. Now this is a long review, so here's a bit of a too long didn't read. Now I think that this game is average at best, with plenty of instances where Koei can be seen cutting corners. In my opinion, it's not worth the $60, and you will probably not find a sale for a Koei game anytime soon, but hey, at least you can use it to take stupid pictures, which is arguably the best feature Dynasty Warriors 9 has to offer. But now, first and foremost, don't let my kind of negative review give you the impression that, oh, I hate this game, or I think that this is a bad game. That is not so. I, in fact, think that this game is actually fine, as a Dynasty Warriors Empires game go. I personally find the game quite pleasant, enough so that I played through 7 playthroughs of this game. I think Steam might benefit from a bit of having an option for more meh or neutral review to more accurately state how I feel about the game, because, you know, it really honestly does come off as kind of half-assed with all the reused cutscenes and shallow gameplay, but at the very least it was an Empire game fit for a Dynasty Warriors fan. I would have complained about this, but at the very least, they actually plan to have split-screen co-op back, so they gain a good few points back from me. Not sure when, not sure why, they can't just include that in the base game, but since, you know, playing co-op is literally the definitive Dynasty Warriors experience, I just don't understand. But, well, I mean, I can even forgive the lack of built-in online without any built-in online co-op, since we can just use the Parsec to play online together, which I intend to do whenever the split-screen co-op comes. I'll definitely be streaming co-op gameplay of this game. But anyway, so, that said, it's a game that cuts corners, and as such, I can't really recommend it to others. I think it's better to just pick it up later in a sale for the price that it deserves. Whenever that happens. You're not really missing much. Well, that would have been enough for my updated review, but I decided to go on a huge rant for no reason, so if you want to know more details, feel free to keep listening. So, fact of the matter is, Dynasty Warriors 9 Empires is just not a great game. First of all, it's a little too costly for what it actually is. Traditionally with Empires games is that they'll be charged for like what I call an expansion price. However, this time around they decided to charge this as if it was a full game. My suspicion is that maybe they decided to keep the open world, which, by the way, swelled the game to nearly 40 gigs in size, that they decided, oh, maybe it's worth charging $60 over. I mean, it's got plenty of content. A whole bunch of barren content, but it's there. But like, if you think about the open world for Dynasty Warriors 9 was bad before, I mean, oh, just wait till you see this game. There is literally nothing for you to do. No fishing, no quests, no anything. The only thing you can do is seek out some random mobs and kill them for gold and food. If you're traveling with someone and you kill 100 things, oh, you receive a gift from your buddy, and that's about it. It's not even a great gift either. There's really no real incentive otherwise to travel unless you're looking to take pictures. I mean, at least some mini games would be nice. Now, I for one, though, am glad that they at least realized this and makes it so that you can just contact officers off of a menu, like making a phone call or something. So unless you like the idea of traveling from one place to another, staring at 2 officers, well, staring over low-texture food over and over again, you're well advised to take advantage of this menu, even if it does make pretty much 99% of the open world completely irrelevant. Now, I am sure they put in a lot of effort into this open world. And I honestly don't agree with some articles calling it simply open world garbage. I think the potential is there, especially for an Empires game. Like imagine a live interactive map of China, traveling with your army, take over different territories in a warband. Oh man, that'd be so cool. I mean, I love Mountain Blade so much. I think we'll go play this after this. But as usual, Koei delivers on its promises of not fulfilling potentials. As such, this became a typical Empires experience. Not necessarily a bad thing, mind you, but man, what a wasted opportunity. I mean, I honestly doubt that Dynasty Warriors will have open world ever again, because they're afraid of failure. Which honestly is a shame, because had they managed it better, with a more lively environment, with various puzzles, activities, dungeons and explorers, and a much better launch of the game in general, instead of a move from point A to point B adventure, it might have been much better received. But instead, they have none of the above. It's a bit of an afterthought. They skimped on voice actors, went with the old Musou story formula instead of an RPG more suited for open world with explorations and such. You know, there's just no reason for you to just wander. Except, to take pictures, checking the sites. That's cute and all, but, sometimes you need things to do. But, I mean, this is the problem with the base game, and not this one in particular. So I best stop here now. As for character creation, one of the first sign of bad tidings is that the character creation in this game is, well, it's hailed as the bestest thing around due to running off the Neo character creation system. For some people, the character creation is the main reason to get the game, so that they can have their original characters or original interpretation of existing characters show up in funny cutscenes and do badass fighting moves as a Dynasty Warriors. However, thanks to cutting corporate greed, which seems to be the norm these days, but I can't help but feel that Koei more so, because we get a lot less base costume from what we had before, and you end up having to share clothing with like two or three characters after a while. And it's not like the clothing system is particularly deep either, just 2 layers and no movable parts. It's not like the much better Soul Calibur character creation system, which I literally spent hours on back in the day. Like, man, making this Pokeball for this James was a pain in the ass too. But anyway, the best part, there will be a DLC soon for a new costume, but half of them are existing costumes from the days of Dynasty Warriors 6 Empires. Over 10 years ago. These are old costumes. So if you want a definitive reason why I can't in good conscience recommend this game, it's that Koei's recent MO has been mostly about ripping off its loyal fan base with overpriced DLCs. And now game prices. It might be fine for a wealthy Three Kingdoms fan who doesn't care about much for their money, but I can't say the same for most people, and most importantly, any newcomer to this series. To add insult to injury, one of the cool features that they do have, or had, which was changing individual Musous, since Dynasty Warriors 7 Empires, improved in Dynasty Warriors 8 Empires, is no longer available. So created characters pretty much had to lift entire movesets off of existing characters instead of creating a more original fighting style. Back then I had made setups where the 3 Musous a character can have would flow like water and combo into each other. Now there's no such mixing and matching. Now you're basically a clone of another character. Yeah, typical Koei, honestly. Now, as for the gameplay loop, you spend 90% of the time doing siege battles and 10% of the time playing with menus. The menus being the actual strategy part of the game. Why is that so? Well, that is because the game has a funny difficulty system where if you have less troops than the enemy, then the battle becomes much harder, and not really much the other way around. Where if you have more troops, it becomes easier. Yeah, man, maybe it's easier in that you're not dying in one hit, but it is not much easier. So anyway, managing the logistics of having a good number of troops and the food to supply them is especially important. you'll find that the stratagems you actually employ in the actual battle itself rarely that important, especially in comparison to this. Something I'll get to talking about after this. So, the world map is much like any other Dynasty Warriors Empires game, with like 20 or so provinces serving as the different battlefields that you must conquer. What is different though is that there's no more options such as isolate or annex that you can pick in the beginning of the game, so if you were to attack an enemy capital and succeed, you'll take a whole chunk of map without question, along with some of the officers who used to occupy those lands. That's actually not much of a problem for me, but I can see the lack of options being an issue for some people. Well, and also it really speeds up the game. The problem with all that, though, is that your player character has to be in every battle. So, even if you're halfway across China when the battle begins, imagine if you're a ruler and your capital just happens to shift away after a battle victory. Then some guy sees that, oh hey, you and your troops have far less troops because you have recently fought, and now they can just attack your new capital with impunity and take your entire kingdom away. Yeah, that kind of stuff can happen. You know, one thing I do find kind of cool is that you can relocate your officers, should you be of high enough rank, during the council phase of the season instead of having to spend a turn moving them on demand. One problem with that, though, is that you can't move yourself for some reason, so any map pressure that you could apply to deter an enemy attack in a certain area will be missing your considerable forces. This also makes refilling troops awkward because you hire troops in a single province rather than in the entire map. So, if all your troops are guarding a choke point and you can't move yourself, you can only refill your allies, which is what you should probably do because you refill more people, and then you'll just have to come in with like half of your troops or something. More boneheaded Koei decisions, I guess. But anyway, I rather like the idea you can have as many officers as you want, as long as you can pay and feed them. There's not a hard limit, since it's like the past games, and it provides some strategic depth since you actually need food to deploy your troops. Other than that, though, not much else to say that isn't already a thing in the previous games. Now, as aforementioned, siege battles are pretty much the entire game. Since you're a free officer, well, you don't have to worry about silly assassination attempts or quest chains to cultivate your character or anything like to keep you busy. No, sir. The only thing you need to do as a free officer is gathering different officers and troops to participate in your siege battles, and that's about it. The premise is simple. Your job is to protect your siege weapon, produce certain bases until they wreak havoc at their destination, or the other way around for the defense. Once you breach the wall, take over half the map, or on the defense, a decisive battle, Kessen, will begin, to which you simply only need to run over the enemy commander, defeat him for victory, yada yada yada. I actually don't mind this system so much, because instead of following a certain chain of bases to reach the enemy main camp, you have a lot of freedom of movement. You can choose to focus a single spot until your siege weapon has completed the job and breached your castle, or you can deal with enemies throughout the map with your allies so that you don't lose too many troops from the AI failing. And they will, making the game much more difficult than what your actual difficulty level suggests. Now, I'm actually okay with the idea that the enemy becomes much harder to beat when they have a huge advantage. I mean, it makes sense. They have a huge morale advantage, and it'll be represented in a way where the enemy will be much harder to stagger and can literally kill you in 1 or 2 hits. Your allies will begin dropping like flies, and your troop count drains uncontrollably. You can, however, squeeze a victory despite such a desperate scenario, even in chaos difficulty, by simply defeating enemy troops until their tickets hit 0 and it became an even fight again. Of course, you'd have to do all the work, but nothing you can do about it. It's too bad, though, that it doesn't matter the other way around. You can have a huge 2-to-1 advantage, and your allies will still need your help, or they will lose all their troops and the downward spiral begins. tested in chaos difficulty. Might be different elsewhere, but this kind of kills the immersive strategy game to me, due to an over-reliance on the player rather than a more organic experience. So games like Mount and Blade, on the other hand, has the entire battle continue to play out, where your ally will fight on even if they have been defeated. They're not dependent on you, and it's actually kind of fun watching them fight. Now, on to stratagems, also known as secret plans. There are little tricks you can use to help tilt the battlefield to your favor a bit. You get a shot at using one first, then your enemy, and then your enemy will also have an additional one, unique to their personality. That extra one is either an ambush on your main camp out of nowhere, or the commander themselves will come out to personally do battle with boosted stats. There's also one other thing they can do, but they do so rarely I kind of forgot. Oh well. For your part, you begin the battle choosing a secret plan. There's a few types: damaging environment types, summoning types, and troop morale types. In general, most of the stratagems don't really help all that much, with a few exceptions. That is because allies in the game, while helpful, cannot be relied upon. The best plans are the ones such as Night Raid or Strike Out that allows you to weaken enemy troops and morale before the battle is joined, giving you a more definitive advantage. For the enemy though, anything that they do, these guys will give you quite a headache to deal with and can be disastrous on a higher difficulty level if the plans are not stopped. Now the reason why I mention all this is because all these stratagems, they're all fluff. They require you to run all over the map, bending your ass over backwards for some objective instead of just escorting the ram into the enemy gates. It looks nice on paper, until you realize that the badass Electro Bear you summon does a whole lot of nothing on the field. Although it was definitely something satisfying to summon the first time though. Even the damaging environments like poison gas doesn't seem to do much damage. So in the end, it all comes down to troop morale, making it so that the enemy doesn't one-shot you while you take him down and finish the map with as few mishaps as possible. So as a result, stratagems from both you and your enemy sides is basically something to just keep you busy for the sake of an arbitrary morale bar. And that's about it. That's all there is to it. It's not like how in Dynasty Warrior 7 Empires, where a catapult base can, say, damage an enemy base, or your summoned troops can actually perform on the battlefield. So much so, that there was actually an achievement for winning a battle in Dynasty Warrior 7 Empires without swinging your weapon even once. Here though, forget about it, because I've been playing chaos difficulty, but given that I hear people are struggling on normal because of the morale system in this game, I have reason to believe that player influence makes up for a good 80% of the battle. I mean, that's fine, but it certainly doesn't feel like an Empires game. After that, I mean, there's really not much else to talk about since the game revolves around these siege battles. Gameplay-wise, it's really a very limited game. You have a small box of a map you can cross in literally half a minute to make the battle look chaotic as you chase these objectives. Then you simply get past the castle wall, defeat the commander, rinse and repeat. Honestly, after my first playthrough, I already saw pretty much all there is to see in the game. And I still played 6 more to get those extra cutscenes and play some of my edited characters. Largely because I have nothing better to do for the holidays. But speaking of cutscenes, much of the cutscenes in this game are kind of short, except for certain scenes like marriage, and to top it off, these scenes were kind of lifted from previous games, mostly 7 Empires, because, well, that was the best Empires. And there's even that Saving the Doggo one from 6 Empires. They bloat the amount of scenes they actually have with variations of the same scenes, like Doggo likes you, or Doggo hates you, or shorter cutscenes in general, so that after a playthrough you'll find that, oh shit, I've pretty much seen everything. You pretty much see the same stuff in the subsequent playthrough, unlike in 7 Empires where you have separate endings and scenes based on the 6 different fame types. Here, the main dividing factor is merely if you're good or evil. Now, I mentioned cutscenes, despite gameplay being my main gripe, because these are what add life to the game. These are what define an Empires game. To see your character interacting with others with unique quotes is a fun experience. I spent much of my time doing that in the past Empire games from when we still had English VAs. Sure, I mean, yeah, I can understand Chinese, and eventually we will get English subtitles, but it just doesn't feel the same without the English voice, the colorful, long cutscenes that I haven't already seen 1,000 times in 7 Empires, and my different characters wearing more than three different sets of clothes. It's just, it's just cutting corners one way after another with this game, while charging for the customers more for an inferior product. But why? I don't get it, because they actually have good ideas. But 4 years after the main Dynasty Warriors 9 series, and this is the best they can come up with? In the past, those 4 years would have been more than enough time for another mainline Dynasty Warriors series. Here, despite having 4 years, I feel like they were barely able to make it. They barely were able to make it despite having 4 or 5 years. Apart from lacking cutscenes, the barren open world, simple siege battles, there was no co-op at launch. Not even split-screen co-op, which is a mainstay for Dynasty Warriors. Granted, Dynasty Warriors 9 also didn't get away, but that's exactly why it's strange. Since they managed to get that into Dynasty Warriors 9 already. They had the whole engine and everything set up, so it doesn't make sense. Then there's the whole English subtitles being locked away, despite it already been done and available on the X Series store. Well, that is up until they removed it, which too is a boneheaded move, by the way, because now you have guys who spent money for an English product, and now have to wait 2 months before that gets unlocked again. If I were them, they should have just deleted that right away and just keep it instead of waiting over a week or so. Very sloppy. It's much like the original Dynasty Warriors 9 launch. Which is sad, because beyond a generally poor product with overpriced DLCs, I can kind of see some of where devs' passions are. It's really too bad sloppy upper management screw things up over for them. But yeah, that's about it. That's about my thoughts for this. I thank you all for listening. Until next time.